Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to a special road trip edition of the CM Mentors podcast. Both me and Kyle are out of the office this week on a business trip, so thought we'd hop on a mic and just kind of record an episode. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, Matt, how you doing? It's good to hear from you. I'm starting to set a precedent here that I'm always in my truck when we're doing these things. So hopefully the sound works out good and everybody can hear me all right.
What do you drive, a Ford or a Chevy? We're going to get you a sponsorship.
Oh, I'm hesitant to even say it on the air, but I drive a Ford these days. I used to be a Chevy man, but I'm gonna be honest. I kind of went for the cheaper route this time. It was a big difference. So I went Ford.
None of them are cheap right now.
No, it's insane. And I actually I ended up just getting this truck because it was one they already had on the lot, and somebody else had ordered it and not taking delivery, so they had it available. I was like, all right, I'll take it.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, man. It was probably the salesman's easiest sale of their entire life.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about this week is you've been out of the office. You've been traveling around doing some kickoff meetings for some projects you got coming up. So I kind of wanted to just get on and talk about what a kickoff meeting is and kind of what makes a good kickoff meeting and all that sort of fun stuff. So you want to talk about what you've been doing?
Yeah, that sounds great. I love the topic here. It's one that I think is really, really important to help get the project started off the right way. So, when it comes to kickoff meetings, the first thing I think of is, what's the purpose of it? To me, the purpose is to a couple things. It's to set the tone for the project. It's to show up on the site with your client, with the contractors. Everybody get together in a room of some capacity, and purpose is to set the tone, and it's to kind of talk through the specifics of the project, the various pieces of it, the bits, all the details that it's going to take to really get things started. I mean, kickoff. Let's go sports analogy with talking with Alex from last week here. Kickoff, just like in football, it's the start of the project on the construction side. So set the tone, just like you would in sports and football. Go out there, get in there, whether it's aggressive or depending on the type of project and who's going to be there. Have that first initial contact, have it go the way you want to kind of show your strategy and how you're going to approach things. What are your thoughts on purpose and kind of setup and that kind of stuff?
I agree. I think they're real important to kind of lay some of the ground rules, right? And I guess that's probably a sport analogy too, ground rules. But yeah. Man, everything we do, now that I'm thinking about it, everything we say is a sports analogy of some sort.
This is all Alex's fault, by the way. But
I see it everywhere now. Thanks, Alex. But no, it kind of sets the ground rules, kind of helps, kind of get everybody on the same page. You got to meet and greet. I mean, it's always sort of a honeymoon stage too, right? You kind of feel each other out, try to understand who's in charge, who's doing this, who's doing that. And, but no, I think aside from that, I think it's real important. To really get a strong start the project right. If you start the project off on the wrong foot, it's hard to recover. I think you'll be months down the road still trying to recover from a poor start.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, we've all been in those meetings too, where it's kind of uncomfortable and it can even be a little bit tense. And it's like this is the chance to really give that first impression. I mean, just like when you're meeting somebody new, kind of like you were saying, getting people in the room. It's that initial. It's a fresh beginning, a fresh start, if you will. And it's like, all right, guys and gals, this is our chance to start this the right way, carry the momentum on through. It's kind of the thoughts there. Question for you, on the owner's rep side, what kind of structure do you guys usually see? I mean, are you guys usually leading and facilitating? Are you guys more so, back seat and the GCs running it? What do you guys usually see?
I like to run it, as the owner's rep from the owner's perspective. I like to run it, and just to kind of I mean, ultimately the owner's in charge, right? And we all sort of work for the owner, so kind of at least leading from the owner's perspective. I do like to get buy-in from the contractor before we start the meeting of kind of the topics we're going to talk about, and see if, at least, I may not give them my whole agenda, because sometimes it's not completely written up in time, but at least kind of the heading points, right? We're going to talk about safety. We're going to talk about material storage. We're going to talk about, just site logistics. We're going to talk about how submittals flow, how RFIs flow, how, all those sort of things. And then, some contractors are like, oh, we also need to talk about this, or maybe the project will call for a special special coordination that we need to be real mindful of. And we're, moving people in halfway through, or just kind of need to talk about those sort of things. But from the owner side, I like to lead them. What about you?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that was our experience this week too. We actually had two projects that were kicking off out in Ohio, and it's been a lot of anticipation, man. We've been talking about these projects for 6 months now. So it was great to finally get out there, get onto the site, meet with the client, meet the contractors that have gotten the project, and be able to have that face to face, shake the hands, and have those conversations. And you brought up a really good point that I think is really, really important for people to listen and understand, is that the whole thing's about collaboration. I mean, the whole point of this meeting is not to come in there and at least my view, not to come in there and take a military style approach and say, this is how we're doing step A to B to C, and there's no give, there's no take on it. It's going to be my way or the highway. I see it as a collaboration thing, collaborative approach. And that's kind of the overall tone we set for our meetings when I'm running them, is that, hey, we have these high level list of topics, just like you said, we have our agenda, our outline of things. And, the same things you're talking about is what's in our stuff too, RFIs and submittals. How are we handling that stuff? What do we have for mobilization logistics plan? Where's everybody parking? How are they getting to the site? How are we getting them access badges into the plant? And how's that all getting controlled? All those little details that get people started on the right foot. And the best way to do it is to start with the collaboration, because that gets the buy-in, just like you were saying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're wanting to have a collaborative project, they're going to have working through it all together and have that team approach. I mean, if you come into the kickoff meeting and if you literally kick off the project in the military, like, everybody sit down, shut up, I'm going to tell you how it's going to go. How the project's going to go.
Yep.
It's funny, like, most people come into those kickoff meetings, usually everyone's on their best behavior, right? Because we're learning, everyone comes in, we're going to be collaborative and all this sort of stuff. But every now and then, you ever see somebody that shows up and they're the one, like maybe it's from the contractor side, or I've even seen it from the owner side before, where they come in and no, this is how it's happening, it's my way or the highway. And it's like, whoa, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Those are fun to navigate right in the middle of the meeting.
Oh, they absolutely are. And the one that comes to mind for me that I see happen over and over again is, so working in these plants, they always have their embedded contractors, the ones that are local, that they use for all their maintenance and all their repairs. And I mean, it's their go-to people that they can call them up in a pinch and with no notice say, hey, we had this thing break down, or we had this leak we need you to fix, and they'll be there to take care of it. They're the contractor's reliable team. Well, sometimes when they're in those meetings, there gets to be a little bit of this notion that we're there trying to get in their way and take over and be like a roadblock between them and the client, the customer. And so that's where it's like being very cautious of those things and being a little sensitive to that, yeah, you know what, I'm sorry, but I'm the new guy on the block here. This is my first day showing up for this project, and I know that you've worked here for 12 years. And so just approaching it delicately, I've found is a good way to handle that.
I've seen those. I don't do food and bed like you do, so not necessarily plant rehab the on-call guy, but I've definitely seen that where it could even be a subcontractor too, right? Like, they could be the go-to electrician that the school calls whenever they have a problem, and then this may not be the initial kickoff that you see, but once you get going, hell, they know more about everything than you do, because they've been working on this. That guy's been working into this building for a decade. And so you got any ideas or kind of how to get those guys on the team and be collaborative when they seemingly know that more than you do?
Well, honestly, my best advice to anybody listening is just don't be afraid to admit that you don't know. I got no problem doing that. Hell, I even said that in the meeting yesterday. I looked around the room and I said, guys, I know that you all work here regularly, and I haven't worked here in 2 years. So I'm leaning on all of you guys to help me drive this meeting and help steer in the direction it needs to go for us to have the right discussions. And everybody was cool with that. And I mean, they were all, I think they appreciated the vulnerability that, hey, I don't need to know everything. I mean, that's you guys you guys and gals as the tradesmen, you're the experts in what you do. I'm just here to help remove the roadblocks so that you guys can do your jobs as best as possible. That's how I approach it.
I love that. That's such a good way to look at it. And so I think when they feel empowered at that point too, right? Because they're like, you're not getting here to get in our way. You're almost just here to assist and help them. It's like they don't work for you, you work for them at some point, right? And then it makes the team a whole lot better.
Well, that's a great way to put it. And I like to think that, and I even say to some people too, that I try to treat everybody on the team or on the construction site as my client. The general contractor, their subcontractors. I mean, obviously the client, of course. People that are just on the project for any odd reason working on stuff. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, we're all working as a team. And if one of us fails, it hurts the whole project. So it just doesn't make any sense for people to show up and get in the way of others and have that military style and close the doors on collaboration, because at the end of the day, if we're all successful, then the project overall is a success. And I mean, hell, I even said, I think it was yesterday or maybe it was Monday, I even said, and maybe I don't know if I should have, but I was like, guys, I want to leave this project in a way that people walk away for once and they actually say, man, that was fun, I liked that project. Because it just doesn't happen very often. I mean, people get run down and schedules get crammed down their throats and they get beat up over time. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I see very few projects that people are happy to work on.
Yeah, I saw man, what was it? It was a meme, because I like memes. But there was a meme that I saw recently. I gotta find it. Maybe I'll put it in a newsletter coming up. But it basically said like day one of the project, and everyone's like excited and like cheering and having a party. And then it was like day 7 of the project, and everyone's already beat down and like crying. It was like,
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I'm giggling. It's not a laughing matter, obviously, but it's so true. And that's what we're trying to change. I mean, we are trying. My company's trying to bring some different ideas and some different ways of doing projects that maybe the clients haven't seen before, because they're used to the strong holding, military style, really, old school way of barking orders on a job site. And that's not how we operate.
you put something on LinkedIn this morning that I driving, or I would quote it, but it was about how you really try to instill the culture up front in these meetings. Like, how'd you do that? Was it basically this collaboration aspect that you really were trying to drive home, or was there more to it?
Yeah, well, it was the collaboration was, I would say, the first part, which is, and what I kind of do with that to try to get everybody involved is, and it's a little clunky, but you just got to get through it, is I like to do the around the room, like everybody, introduce yourself. And I like to leave it open-ended, so that people can kind of say whatever they want to about themselves. You can also learn a little bit about people by what they say. So we get through that phase and everybody warms up a little bit. And then, of course, hopefully there's also maybe some joking around back and forth with people that know each other. But then when it comes down to it, I've got a couple of slides where I hit on project success. And what I hit on is, all right, as a team, how are we going to define success for this project? And so I talk about 3 things, and I get the input on 3 different things. The first one is expectations. So as a team, a collaborative project site construction team, what are our expectations from each other? And so I just open it up and I say, all right, what do we have? Let's start naming them here. And I'll get anywhere from, I mean, the last couple of days, the participation was awesome. I was getting 5, even 10 different things to write down. These guys and gals in the room just sharing, off the top of their head, the expectations they have, for people with them, but also what they expect from others and stuff. And so that was the expectations part. How do we, what do I expect from you? And then also, obviously the two-way street, what you expect from me. That's the first one. The second one I hit on is the success criteria for the project. And now that one's more, I would say, subjective. Whereas these expectations is objective, where the success criteria can more so be measured, where there's a very specific goal in mind. Like, for example, I mean, the first one and the best one, of course, is 0 safety incidents, right? We don't want to have that. Safety's first, no matter what. So that's usually one that comes up right away. And then beyond that, it could be things like, we need to be finished by this date, or in these food and bev projects, we want to have our first sellable product by this date. So the line's installed, it's gone through checkout, it's started up, and now we have a product that has been quality checked as well, that it can be sold on the market. So that's oftentimes a target finish date. So again, that success criteria, that's kind of the more measurable goals beyond just having some expectations. And then the third one I talk about is the respect piece. So the respect is kind of two parts. I mean, how do we define respect first? But then beyond that, how are we going to actually do it? I mean, what are some things that come to mind when we think about respect on a job site? How do we make sure that stuff actually takes place on this specific job site with these people in this room? So, maybe kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah, I try to hit on those three things: the expectations, the success criteria, and then building a culture of respect.
How's that taken in? Do you get eye rolls, or people bought into it?
Man, I've been actually really pleasantly surprised. I had awesome buy-in the last couple of days doing it. These tradesmen and these contractors, I mean, I was probably sitting, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 people in the room, somewhere between that for each one. And I'm talking, I mean, we had the bigwigs from the plant there too. We had the engineering managers that oversee all the projects and all the engineering for the whole plant. A couple of them that were in the room as well, and they were chiming in too. I mean, it was great. They were sharing some things that they expected, and some ideas and ways for being respectful. The contractors were chiming in. I mean, we shared some stuff too that we felt maybe they hadn't touched on yet that should be on the list. So, the participation, the buy-in was actually really, really good these last couple of days. And that's why, my post, I talked about being excited about it. That's why I'm really excited. I mean, getting the kickoff going that direction, to me, says a lot of things about how the tone has been set, and at least the way that it can go. So
that's cool, man. You keep saying these last couple of days. Did you have a 2-day kickoff meeting, or was it 2 separate projects?
It was 2 separate projects.
Okay, I was thinking, man, a 2-day kickoff meeting. Like, I'm all about it. That's a bunch.
Well, and it was 2 separate projects, and there's actually 3 that we're involved with, but it was just 2 of the projects. We had kickoff meetings now. The third one's coming up here in probably about another month or so. But yeah, 3 projects total at this same plant. We got a lot of work going on.
Gotcha. That makes more sense. I was like, okay, you had me, but I'm gone now, man. After the second day. So I was going to ask you something. Everyone's heard of post-mortem meetings, right? Everyone gets around after the meeting's done, and you're examining the dead body and trying to figure out what happened, what was good, what was bad. But have you ever done a pre-mortem where essentially at the beginning of the project, I've actually never done this, but I've heard about it. And then I actually was listening to a podcast on something completely unrelated. It was basically about product development, actually AI product development, stuff like that. We're just talking about developing it and basically asking the same question. So basically getting the people on the team, he was talking about product development, but you basically, in your kickoff meeting, have a section and where you say, hey guys, we're all, 3 months after project completion, and the project failed miserably. What happens? And it kind of helps everybody. You start looking at it from a different lens, kind of out of that optimistic lens a little bit. You can kind of be a little bit vulnerable, and you say, okay, well, open it up. Well, maybe, and you can drag out some issues too, right? Like, well, it failed because this component was shipping from Japan and it didn't make it because of the supply chain. You start developing kind of workarounds and alternative contingency plans. Have you ever done something like that?
Well, are you talking about like after the project's already going and we're getting near the end, or are you saying even before shovel hits the ground?
Talking about like right now, like when you're doing your kickoff meeting, maybe even part of your kickoff meeting, or even a separate meeting aside from the kickoff meeting, but like you're basically looking forward, right? You're trying to think about, okay, if we did a pre-mortem, and we're thinking about what happened at the end of the meeting or at the end of the project after substantial completion, like just put it on your thinking cap. We're all sitting around this table and the project failed. Let's all think about why it would have failed. And then conversely, what made this a success? And it's a different way to bring out some constraints and information, and not in a bad way, but just kind of help the team think through some stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting idea. I mean, I have not done I would say a formal section of a meeting that way. But I mean, you just mentioned the word constraints. We do try to have that be one of our agenda topics for that kickoff meeting is, what do we have for constraints in the site? And maybe it's access points, or maybe it's times of day because of production schedules, or maybe it's an overhead bridge clearance issue. Maybe you can't even get tall trucks to the site, or from a certain direction or something like that. But now thinking about end of the project though, for what could go wrong, I guess to that question, I would say that I like to ask the project engineers and the project managers on the owner side. I like to ask them, what's your biggest concerns on these projects? What's going to keep you up at night? Which things are you really thinking about that are a hot button issue for you? And the way I do that is we actually do a client onboarding as well. And so when they come on board, even before we have a kickoff meeting, so just us and the customer, we introduce them, to us, to our team, kind of our ways of working with all of our different software that we have to use for invoicing and, any of our SOV review and those kinds of things. But during that meeting, we like to talk about, all right, so like I said, which things are a concern to you? What keeps them up at night? Is that kind of where you're going, or?
Yeah, pretty much. There's different ways to attack it. The podcast I was listening to, which made me rethink about this idea I had in the past, which I've actually never done something as formal as this, but he basically said, you're in the middle of developing a product and they're talking about like AI and software and that sort of stuff, but it was, he likes to ask the team, says, all right, guys, fast forward in your brain, let's do a little exercise. Fast forward in your brain till next year, the day after the product hits the market and it's a complete failure. What happened? What went wrong? And then it helps people maybe be a little bit more vulnerable too, and saying, hey, well, I've been worried about this, and I think this might be a bigger problem. And you kind of go around the room, and if 2 or 3 people say the same thing, well, hey, there might be an issue there. You know what I mean? It's just it's something that I heard on that, and it triggered my thought of like, man, I had this idea, or I don't, that wasn't my, my novel idea. I probably got it somewhere about doing these pre-mortem meetings, and anyway, I didn't know if anybody's actually doing that in practice.
No, I to be honest with you, I haven't even seen that before. And even that concept is something that's a little bit new to me. It's kind of crazy. I mean, and part of the reason why I even want to do this CM Mentors in the first place with you is that, I mean, the gold standard in the industry, and like for what construction managers do, at least in the space that I work in, I mean, the bar is pretty low, which is really unfortunate. And I mean, even after these just a simple kickoff meetings the last 2 days, I already got feedback from the clients. They're like, "Thank you for coming out here and getting the project off to a good start. We've never seen it before." And I'm like, "Really? It's isn't this just a standard practice? I mean, it should be. It's just a standard practice, but that's a lot of the reason why I think the industry has a lot of room for improvement, and why I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next generations do. Like I've seen in some events and some of the questions that we get, I mean, they're asking some good questions, and so I think they're going to be off to a really good start.
Cool, man. That gives such good confidence on the client too. In that case too, when you're when you're head and shoulders above the last person that was in there, if they've never seen it before, that's got to be a good confidence for them.
Oh yeah, I would certainly think so, and especially from the standpoint of, I mean, like our company, and I'm sure you guys too, over at AGCM, there's a lot of stuff that it's like your company standards, right? You have your certain forms and your checklists, and I mean, just the way you things. And to us, this is one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, we have a kickoff meeting. I mean, we got to have, not only is it in our contract with the client, but it's a standard practice, at least as far as we know. But apparently, it's not such a standard practice. The old saying that sometimes common sense isn't so common. I guess it's similar to that.
Which is, I mean, it kind of makes it why it's obvious, like the construction manager role, like we're doing, this owner's rep role is actually necessary, because a lot of owners, I mean, especially your owners, right? They run a factory. They know how, they don't understand the construction side of it. They're used to producing widgets. I mean, widgets maybe a candy bar or whatever they're making, but it's still, it's a different mindset and a different thought pattern. So having somebody, like you coming in to help them manage that, kind of shows the importance of it. But I've also seen, even though, man, I don't know the history, but owner's rep, construction manager, agent, or whatever you want to call it, been around for a while. I don't know how long, but it still feels like a new role in the construction process. Like, it's not as well defined. Like, there's not I know there's an AIA contract, I think, for it, but like I've never seen it used. So everyone's kind of defining their own scope as they go, I feel like. Is that what you're seeing?
I definitely agree with that. And my feeling on it is that it's kind of like the whole shift that's happened. And from my understanding, even something back to like the 80s and the 90s of construction contracts, and the contracts, typically were design, bid, build. That was the norm. And now it was even that way all the way up until, I mean, hell, that's the way contracts mostly were 5 and 7 years ago when I was in the engineering world. And nowadays things are going a lot towards design builds, integrated project deliveries, and even like in different concepts and different spin-offs of integrated project delivery. And so to me, it's kind of follows that same timeline, and it's almost like as projects are shifting and the contracts are changing, the role that somebody plays as an owner's rep, it's kind of split off. It used to be like, GC might handle that, even at least in some respects, but now it's really becoming more of like a specialized, more of a consultancy type role. I mean, really advisory focus is kind of what my thoughts on what it's become.
Yeah, that's true. Do you see a lot of integrated project delivery? You're talking about like a multi-prime type situation?
Well, multi-prime, but more so it's like, so, and so first, to answer your question, no, I don't. I think there's a lot of it going on in like the healthcare projects and like mega projects and stuff. So no, I haven't actually even gotten to work on a true integrated project. But my understanding about the integrated projects is that it's a lot to do with how the risk is apportioned to the parties on the contracts. And so really it's like contractor, owner, architect, they all share the risk more evenly, instead of a lot of it falling on, for example, the contractor, if it's a CM at risk, or, maybe, or, a lot of it might fall on the architect or the engineer if it's a design build. So really, my limited understanding is that it's more so about more evenly distributing that risk from a contract standpoint.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's something I've kind of only read about in textbooks. You know what I mean? Like I don't actually see it in practice, at least for the type of projects we do. And there's probably a geographical fit to it as well. Maybe that's my assumption. I don't know. I'm sure somebody knows way more than me, and they'll chime in hopefully. But yeah, we see a lot of, even now with what we're doing, we see a lot of CM at risk. We see a lot of, especially with the way the economy's been, it's so hard to do a design bid build project. So it's definitely a lot of stuff we're seeing taking advantage of the CM at risk model. But it's been interesting.
Oh yeah, well, and like in the manufacturing space, what the projects that I've worked on, what I'm seeing is like hybrids. They're doing a lot of the scope might still be design bid build, but then they'll have a portion of the scope that maybe they've done the math and they have the right contractor that this portion is going to be design build. Maybe it's maybe part of the project is that we're putting a production line in this space, and so we have to build a new warehouse to offset that space. And so the warehouse, it's basically a commercial construction. So we can just design build that part, potentially save some costs for overall. And then the rest of it will be, bid out with third-party engineering consultants, and then, traditional design bid build type things. That's kind of what we're seeing. It's almost like the project gets split up a little bit, just depending on how big the scope is, and like I said, where the dollars and cents are the most efficiently used. And some really cool stuff though that I have seen as well is like some of the prefabricated stuff. And I mean, I've seen it where they'll prefabricate piping skids and bring them on site, and now you just cut your installation time and by 70% or more, because now you only have, I don't know, let's say 8 or 10 welds to make instead of 200. And I'm making up numbers here, but simple things like that, plus prefabrication done the right way can save a lot of costs too, because usually they can do shop labor in-house with potentially less skilled people than it would take to be in the field on the site, installing the same thing.
Yeah, prefabrication is the way to go, especially with the labor crisis we have. You could get way more done. I think it's a lot safer too, because you're not working. If you're the mechanical and plumbing subcontractor I worked for in the past, they prefabricated everything they could, and a lot of it you're welding up these pipe assemblies, but you're doing it on a table at waist height, right? At a safe and workable height. You're not trying to overhead weld up in the ceiling space of some, you know what I mean? Doing all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it goes faster, safer, it's more productive, it's cheaper, and then there's a lot less risk on the project side too, because when you get it out there, I mean, they had it down where they would. I mean, it was basically like putting together an IKEA table, hanging the pipe. It was like, and you connect it to piece B, and it looks like this, and like it was just easy to do.
Well, yeah, that definitely sounds sounds like it'd be interesting. What stuff do you guys typically see being prefabricated on your sites?
A lot of piping is mostly what you see. I started to see I started to see electricians do it, but I don't know. I just think they're prefabricating. I don't even know. You may know better than me. It's not nearly necessarily the same, I guess, because they'll go ahead and pre-do their wiring and this stuff, on the lid, whatnot. Have you seen? One thing I've seen is cool is like prefabricating. Actually, I need to get back in touch with him. He actually sent me a message. Anthony G'day. They do prefabricated like housing, multifamily housing, single family housing out in Los Angeles. Basically, they basically build these in a warehouse and basically go and erect them with basically building Lego blocks, stack them together.
Yeah,
I've seen people do pods, like restroom pods. So if you're doing a hotel, these restroom pods would work really well. Because if you think about a hotel, you know, it's just a big open room with a little bit of electrical stuff in the walls, and then all your really majority of your plumbing and everything else, and a lot of your risk of a hotel room is in the bathroom. That's where all your trades come together.
Yeah.
So they were seeing people prefabricate restroom pods where they basically just fly them up and set them into the corner of the hotel room, and they'll install the riser, plug it in, good to go. Interesting.
Yeah, no.
Hey, can you hear me? I'm losing you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Okay, we're back. We're back, folks.
If I get 3 seconds, so the next week I'll go edit that out. Not. It was a robot dance party.
Yeah.
But
no, I was just saying really quick. Oh, you're still going.
No, I was just talking about the bathroom pods. You hear that part?
No. Give me again.
About the bathroom pods for the hotels, where they can basically take them and fly them up into the corner of the hotel, and then it's all your really electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and all your majority of your risk for your hotel room is kind of wrapped up in the little bathroom. So if they can prefabricate those bathroom pods off site and then put them in place and plug them in, I don't know. I saw some stat on it. It saved like a crazy amount of labor.
No, that's super cool, because I saw something else, like a video or a podcast or something, where they were talking about a thing. They were like building hotel rooms, and I don't know if it was like considered modular, but they were almost like flying in with a crane, almost a whole room that's complete, and they just got to connect up the electrical and the plumbing, and they're done. I mean, crazy stuff like that. Super cool.
People, I don't know if it was the first people to do it, but actually in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, it was like the I'm going to butcher this, but like, so 1968 World's Fair or something like that. They had, and I don't remember, I actually wrote about it in one of the newsletter episodes. But I think they had like 180 days to build a hotel, something stupid fast, because they had to have it open before the World's Fair started. And they prefabricated these concrete cubes, essentially, and they were a complete hotel room, down to like the alarm clock on the nightstand table. And they just flew them all up, stacked them in place like Lego blocks, and plugged them in. And they like had 150 days. Like I forget what it was. They had like 180 days to do it, and they did it in like 150 days. It was something like stupid fast.
Yeah, those kinds of stories are just super incredible. I mean, can you imagine being there to watch that take place?
Oh man, and just every day you're just seeing this thing get stacked up like a Lego tower get built.
Yeah. No, it'd be super cool. And I'm gonna go on a topic here really quick, because I wanted to ask you a question. One of the hacks that you posted about, I don't remember if it was today or last week or something, but you talked about to-do lists and managing to-do lists.
Yep.
So I was kind of curious. I was curious. I wanted to hear your thoughts on some of the stuff that you've done or that you guys do that you're finding works well for doing that.
Always looking for the next shiny thing, which is one of my problems. Like I'll switch to digital. Like I'm gonna do this digital thing. It's gonna have all my notes and all my to-do lists and everything. It's gonna be a perfect system, right? And then I always end up defaulting back to paper and pen, just because that was what works best for me. And then I'll do that for a while. Then I'll see a new shiny thing, the AI built in, and like this is gonna solve all my problems, right? And so anyway, but honestly, the best system I've ever done, and I like the best, is the bullet journal. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think so.
I can't explain it all, but Google it. But essentially, it's how you take all your notes and all your daily notes, kind of your journal, and how you kind of a system and a format. And there's kind of weekly reviews, monthly reviews. Then there's kind of a rolling to-do list that goes with it. And then I implement it because I'm big of having a follow-up list as well. So I kind of implement that into it as well. But it's basically just get like just a bound notebook, some blank sheet notebook, and go with that. But that's my favorite. I've been the most consistent with that. I like that best.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. And I mean, the part that you said about, trying different things and shiny objects, that's been me too. I mean, I've tried many different apps on my phone. I've tried a bunch of different pen and paper things. And it's just like, there's a different way I'm trying to find to be the most efficient. And then, my biggest thing is make this big, long list of things, and it just grows and grows and grows. And then before you know it, there's stuff that you're forgetting to get done because your list is so big.
I think we're
Um,
very close to having where you can probably for very cheap have like an AI assistant where somehow you maybe just can talk to your phone, right? Just do voice memo and it figures it all out. It tells you these 5 things you need to get done today. It does it all for you, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Part of what I like about, the bullet journal and that sort of stuff is it kind of forces you to think through your notes and think through it all, and you kind of have to process it. Where if AI is doing all that for you, you're just kind of executing tasks that it gives you. I don't know. You probably lose some of your brainstorming power and whatnot.
Oh, I believe that because I mean I also believe too that because there's this big talk, everybody's concerned about AI taking over the world and killing off the humans or whatever they're saying, and but the human part of it is still there, and I mean it ultimately drives the AI. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I do think it has a ton of power that could be used the wrong way, but there's still that human element that's critical and that's key to how it even operates. And so like in this example, an AI powered to-do list, I mean, I think I could see it being super helpful. And also, I mean, at the end of the day, though, there's still the human part that, what meetings took place, or which things are actually priorities that especially on a job site from day to day, it can change. And so the priority that was yesterday is probably not the same one as today.
100%.
And yeah,
And that's
for the
what
AI to know
AI
that.
does. Yeah, what I've seen AI is like incredibly good at detecting patterns, right? It'll find patterns and stuff. That's kind of how it works, is my understanding. And I'm still a dumb construction guy. I don't have a clue how it works, but my understanding basically is really, really, really good at detecting patterns in very complex situations. That's how it can predict things, right? And I'm sure there's patterns in how your day goes as being a construction manager, but a lot of times, like your priorities can change, at the drop of a hat, like just because this happened or that happened. So to be able to detect that and give that output, I don't know. I'm sure we're not far off from it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, and the interesting thing about it, and it's probably a little off topic for a construction podcast, but hey, who cares? It's ours. I was listening to the All In podcast, and they were talking about AI, and they were talking about first. I mean, it's a few months old now, but they were talking about when Chat GPT was getting really popular, and it was super cool to listen to these guys talk about it because they're guys that were big, like Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs that grew successful businesses and sold them off, and now they're worth $1 bajillion. These guys are, but they have a really unique perspective. And like one of the guys was an executive at Google. Another guy was he worked with Facebook or at Facebook or something. And I mean, you can look it up and learn all about these guys. Of course, they're celebrity millionaires, all in. But it was really fun to hear the perspective. And they were talking about Chat GPT, but then of course Yahoo or Google, Facebook, they're going to have their own AIs as well. And Bard is Google, I believe, that's going to compete. And but the cool part of the conversation, and everybody else can go listen to it instead of listening to my crappy cliff notes. But the cool part about the conversation was like they were also talking about, all right, well, where's the threat here? I mean, when is AI going to become a threat to society? And one of the guys, my paraphrasing was he was basically saying, well, once the AI can figure out how to improve itself, that's when we got to start worrying. At least that's the way that I took that conversation. It kind of made me chuckle, and I'm like, well, I guess so, right? If the AI can.
Did I lose you again? Hey, you back?
Hey, sorry about that. I dropped off. I had a freaking spam call come in, and I hit decline, and it ended this call too.
All good. the joys of podcasting when you have no clue what you're doing. You there? Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, geez, sorry, my Ford has some issues.
You're
And
not looking
and
for
and I really hope somebody from Ford happens to hear this podcast, because I'm going to say right now, my electronics, my F-150 suck.
Chevy Silverado electronics are on the fritz, so I don't know. They'll just start cycling through the touchscreen pages on its own.
Well, for some reason, the Bluetooth connection in this truck, like, it connects to my iPhone with CarPlay, and just the weirdest things will just break that connection.
That's crazy.
So, hey,
my wife's
anyways, yeah. Still got some kinks to work out in technology. So yeah, there we go. AI. Now we're back to the technology thing.
I thought you offended the AI overlord, and they just shit canned us.
Hey, maybe I did. Between pissing off, what was the other platform we were using?
The Riverside platform.
Yeah. Between them and AI, we got some targets on our backs, I think.
Yeah, they that was for the first one we did the live stream with Adam, and I got booted off immediately.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm coming up on Buc-ee's here in a little bit, so I'm gonna have to take a pit stop. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we end this guy?
No, I think it was fun to chat about the kickoff meetings and stuff, and I think we hit on the most important topic, which is to make it collaborative. From what I've seen and experienced, the best sites and the best projects really enforce the collaboration and encourage it. And to me, that's just one of the things that builds up that culture of respect. So, if nothing else, I hope the listeners at least come away with that from the conversation.
I agree. I think kickoff meetings are so important just for that reason alone. It's just kind of get everybody together and you start on the right foot. Because however long your project is, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 5 years, if you don't get started on the right foot, it's going to be a very long and painful experience.
Yeah, exactly. The projects get stressful enough on their own. You might as well start it out in a good way.
Great. Well, man, thanks for taking some time and jumping on here with me. Fun as always.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. I hope listeners get something out of it here, and if they happen to hear some of the fumbling back and forth, thanks for listening through it. But that's just how we roll, man.
We'll get the kinks worked out before the sponsorship money comes rolling in.
Well, the next sponsorship, at least.
We've written off GM and Ford. Who else are we gonna piss off?
Who else can we piss off on this podcast?
The entire AI industry, they're already mad at us. So.
Yeah, we better be careful, I guess. So they can be pretty powerful.
Yeah. Anyway, man, good chat. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks, everybody.